welcome to Trail Mix here at Gaze at the National Parks, the podcast. I'm Mike.
And I'm Dusty. While our long format episodes explore one hiking trail and one national park, one park at a time, our short format episodes, called Trail Mix, dive deep into an area we didn't get to cover in our long format episodes.
And since we're currently exploring the trails in Yellowstone National Park, this Trail Mix is all about buffalo.
Or bison, and we'll get to that distinction in just a few. We just came off of a trip where we saw a lot of bison.
We did, or buffalo. Yeah.
Right.
The first time that we saw them was when we were driving, not even in the park, but to the park in Teddy Roosevelt.
In Teddy Roosevelt.
Right.
Yeah, like
Roosevelt
right
National
from
Park.
the highway.
Yeah, they were just there.
It was
just kind of like
in the fields.
Yeah.
Beyond.
And then we saw a ton of them throughout the park, which was incredible, along with a myriad of other wildlife, which I don't think I would have ever dreamed of seeing. We had that experience, and it is majestic. I understand, but I don't condone why people get so close.
No, right.
By any means.
Don't ever.
But
no.
I understand there is like a weird allure, because it does also seem, definitely not the case, but like it is a gentle giant kind of like cow.
But they are not gentle.
But they are not.
Not gentle.
Nor should you ever approach a wild animal. But I can see why...
Especially a buffalo.
Right. I can see why people might. I do.
Yeah.
I do have
in the world of like, oh, it's so different, hypnotizing in that way.
You just described your night at the gay bar.
Right. I want you to just estimate how many buffalo do you feel like we saw?
Oh my God.
Between Teddy Roosevelt and Yellowstone. Like, how many do you feel like you had eyes on at any like in total?
I feel like easily 1,000. Like, I'm bad at judging crowd sizes. I didn't say 1 million though. But it felt like, especially in Lamar Valley, I just felt like you turned on the one side of the road where it was just that sweeping valley, and then the hills. There were just tons of them. Like, and if they weren't close to the road, they were specks in the distance, and you could really, really make them out still. You knew that they were buffalo, even though they were far. Like, I just felt like it was thousands of buffalo.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. At least 1,000 buffalo we saw.
And again, we did see some that were very close to the car, the road. We had a weird experience in a parking lot, that we were forced to flee from by someone that's sitting across from me right now.
Well, we did flee because
someone
else, another person decided to get very close.
I did
to
not.
Take a photo.
That is a lie.
Not you. I'm saying the other person.
Did you see how I flew into defense?
I did. I did.
What's my defense mechanism? Defense. Yes, that other person did.
That person got out their camera and decided to get about like 5 feet from that bison, and it scared the bison or buffalo.
Right.
And then that buffalo started bucking, and it was not great.
No,
and I was like, we have to get out of here right now. That buffalo will run right toward us. So, yeah.
But yes, a ton of buffalo / bison for sure. First, we would like to acknowledge that while hiking on the land, also called Teddy Roosevelt National Park, that we are on the traditional and stolen land of the Mandan, Hidatsa, Arikara, Métis, Assiniboine, Cheyenne, Oceti-Sakowin, and Hunkpapa people. And while we were hiking on the land also called Yellowstone National Park, we were on the traditional and stolen lands of the Eastern Shoshone, Crow, Cheyenne, and many others.
To answer the question, is it buffalo or is it bison, one could look at some scientific explanations, which cite origins from other parts of the world and divergence in species, and one whose horns are bigger than the others. However, we would like to defer to Irvin Carlson, the director of the Blackfeet Buffalo Program and the president of the Intertribal Buffalo Council. In an interview with CBS this morning, he said, quote, "We don't call them bison, we call them buffalo. We think of bison as a white man term," end quote.
The buffalo and the indigenous people of the land, also called America, go hand in hand. There is no way to speak about one without the other, especially when it comes to indigenous tribes of the area, also called the Great Plains.
According to the Atka Lakota Museum and Cultural Center, the Tatanka, or buffalo, is sacred to the Lakota people because it gives all of itself so that they might survive. The buffalo becomes many things, including food, clothing, tools, and food storage. Often the skull of a buffalo is included during Lakota ceremonies to remember and honor its sacrifice.
The buffalo have served as resources for the indigenous people of the land, also called America, for thousands of years. But this changed with the entrance of, wait for it, Can you guess? That's right. White settlers.
Is there anyone out there who didn't honestly think that? I'm curious. After white settlers from Europe had taken over essentially all of the eastern side of what is also called America, they began to move west, using phrases like how the West was won as a way to paint white settlers as hero figures, taming the wilds of the West, when in reality there were Native American tribes living peacefully in their communities that they had built in the plains.
During this time was also the building of the Transcontinental Railroad, which we all know paid everybody super fairly and didn't cause anyone any harm or pain at all. Between colonization of the West, including the building of this railroad, it put Native Americans in the buffalo in direct danger.
This led to an event called the Great Buffalo Slaughter. In the 1870s, there were between 30 million and 60 million wild buffalo roaming in the Great Plains. During the time between 1870 and 1899, so many buffalo were hunted and killed that it left only 300 buffalo in the wild.
Yeah, this was...
Yeah. So
that was a
literally
lot to take in at Yellowstone when we read that.
Of millions of buffalo slaughtered.
Yeah.
Tens of millions.
Yes.
Multiples.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Mm-hmm. And there was, there was poaching was a part of this too.
Oh, yeah.
There was a lot going on.
Oh, there's a lot of reasons for it, which we're going to get into those reasons in a minute.
Yeah.
But like it is just like...
It's genocidal.
It's genocidal. Mm-hmm. Right. White settlers were already being genocidal toward Native American people.
Yep.
They were also doing this toward their number one resource.
So why were many buffalo slaughtered so quickly? There are a lot of answers to this question. For starters, a growing middle class of mostly white settlers and their descendants began a high demand for beef, so they wanted to make room on the plains for cattle farming. Also, after the Civil War, industry was growing, and buffalo skin made for strong machinery belts.
This was also, like, Texas was one of the only spots where there was an ample amount of cattle farming, and they could not keep up with the demand. So that was why they needed to get rid of buffalo in the Great Plains.
Got it.
In order to put them there. Also, the U.S. government's attempt to prevent Native American tribes from following the buffalo was to create the reservation system. One of the many reasons they created the reservation system. This was an act of control to establish native land and non-native land, because on the books have said over and over again that they wanted the Native American people to behave in the same way that white settlers had behaved, which was, basically creating urban areas and suburban areas, cities and towns and whatnot. And they have their one piece of land, and that's just that. And further control of indigenous people came from controlling and eliminating one of their most fruitful resources.
So if white settlers barreled through uninvited and literally slaughtered millions of buffalo, why do there seem to be so many buffalo in the areas also called national parks, specifically Yellowstone and Teddy Roosevelt?
After so much bison slaughter had occurred, in 1894, Congress finally made it illegal to kill any birds or animals inside the confines of Yellowstone National Park, which is where a lot of this was happening.
Right.
While this didn't stop the killing of bison, it helped to reduce the rate at which they were being killed. And this allowed for an interception to happen to prevent buffalo from going completely extinct.
Through many years of careful planning and partnering with conservationists and privately owned herds, the number of buffalo was able to be restored so that it is no longer considered endangered.
Today, the U.S. Department of Interior manages 11,000 bison, I say bison, that's their word that they used, in 19 herds across 12 states. Though there are about 500,000 in total in the area we call North America.
Which is amazing. Not as good as it was, but to think about a species that was decimated down to,
almost
nothing to rebound is incredible.
But one of the things they say all the time is like, if you get rid of the buffalo, you get rid of the Indian. There's no world in which that was not part of the agenda.
Sure, of course. But as it will not be a surprise to literally anyone, the rate of buffalo restoration can be seen growing alongside the rate at which we hand over the responsibility of buffalo restoration to indigenous people. While recent headlines of the return of land to indigenous people include the National Bison Range to the Salish and Kootenai tribes and the restoration of buffalo to the Quapaw tribe, the effort of indigenous people to protect and restore buffalo started long before that.
In February of 1991, members of 19 tribes gathered together in the Black Hills of South Dakota for one goal, and that was, quote, to restore bison on tribal lands for cultural and spiritual enhancement and preservation, end quote. And this became the Intertribal Buffalo Council, who have worked every day toward this mission since that day in February.
And it has grown. The Intertribal Buffalo Council now consists of over 60 tribes across 19 different states. And through their work, they have returned over 20,000 buffalo to over 1 million acres of tribal land. They have also been working on the Indian Buffalo Management Act. This is from their website.
Quote, for nearly 15 years, the Intertribal Buffalo Council has been working tirelessly to secure a permanent federal obligation to support tribes in restoring buffalo on tribal lands. There have been recent milestones in the advancement of this process. On November 18, 2019, Congressman Don Young of Arkansas and co-sponsors Congresswoman Deb Haaland of New Mexico, who we all know is now the Secretary of the Interior, and Congressman Tom Cole of Oklahoma introduced the Indian Buffalo Management Act, or H.R. 5153, to the U.S. House of Representatives. On February 5th, 2020, members of the Intertribal Buffalo Council testified before the U.S. House of Representatives Committee on Natural Resources, Subcommittee on Indigenous Peoples of the United States about the Indian Buffalo Management Act. The bill was received with overwhelming support and positivity from our representatives. We are optimistic and look forward to the next steps. End quote. So I checked on this bill, and it's in the current docket. Congress, but it is still sitting there. It has only been introduced to the Committee on Natural Resources. So it hasn't moved on since then. But it could, but it's going to take, all of our support of that.
Yes.
And just a little more, I think, pressure on all of those voting members, and that can come from all of us.
Yep.
And through their work with the National Bison Association and the Wildlife Conservation Society, they were able to pass the Bison Legacy Act of 2016, which officially established the bison as the United States national mammal.
I love that. I did not know that. That's great. If you'd like to get involved in their work, you can go to itbcbuffalonation.org and follow their work and make a donation to help and support to continue their work.
And now, let's end this trail mix with a game. You ready to play a game?
You know it.
My original thought for this game.
Okay.
I wanted to do a game called Endangered by Capitalism, meaning like identify the other animals, because we can literally see buffalo were slaughtered because of capitalism, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, what other animals might have experienced something similar because of capitalism? And do you know what?
There's a lot.
No, upon researching it, do you know what? The answer is literally all animals.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Did you know that in 2019, the World Wildlife Fund for Nature published that officially the animal population was down by 60% due to exploding human consumption?
Our failing Earth, everybody.
That just made Mike really
Welcome
excited.
Welcome to my dark corner of the universe, Corner.
My dark corner. Welcome to my dark corner, everybody, where we talk about all of the things that are so dark in our lives.
Seriously, this is the dark corner I occupy, and
I know you do. I know you do. Okay, so
I put on my Cure t-shirt.
So now the game is called Endangered or Not Endangered.
Great.
Some species, just like buffalo, have come back from being on the endangered species list.
Sure.
So I'm going to give you an animal, and you have to tell me currently right now, is that animal endangered or not endangered?
Can I ask a clarifying question?
Sure.
If they're not endangered, may they still be threatened?
Oh, yeah, that means that, yeah. Just
they're
not on
like,
the endangered species
sure.
list. They could still be threatened.
Right.
That's true.
I mean, not great, but
not great.
That's a clarifier, and
Right.
I want everybody out there to know that just because something
is off
not,
the endangered species list
doesn't mean
it's not off the
still
threatened
problems.
species
Right.
list.
Mm-hmm.
It's true. Okay, ready?
Mm-hmm.
Here we go.
Great, just spirals.
Orangutans.
Endangered.
Yes, they are critically endangered. Like they are of the most endangered.
And they're
of
our
all
closest primate relative, I think, right?
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
The panda bear.
Endangered.
Not endangered
Okay.
anymore, thanks to the work of those really working to restore the panda
Right.
bear.
Well, I know pandas in the captivity don't like to have sex.
That's true.
And in fact, I believe, I don't know what zoo, but I know that there were some pandas in zoos during COVID because there were not people all the way around that were impregnated and became pregnant because
they don't like people to watch.
Like people to watch or to be around.
There, makes sense.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
The southern white rhinoceros.
Oh, endangered.
Not endangered.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good. I'm happy to hear.
The bald eagle.
Not endangered.
That is correct. It is not endangered. The Channel Islands fox.
Endangered.
No.
Oh, okay.
It has come off of the endangered list. It's
the golden,
no longer
I thought the
endangered.
golden eagles are the was it peregrines? What are there now? I thought they were eating them more and more.
Oh, I don't know. As far as last reports that I read,
that's great.
That were just
I'm glad
published,
to hear.
They were not endangered, technically. The black rhinoceros.
Endangered.
Yes, critically endangered. The hawksbill turtle.
Not endangered.
It's critically endangered. Okay. Yeah. The grizzly bear.
This is a game where no one wins.
The grizzly bear.
Not endangered.
That is correct. The Sunda tiger.
Endangered.
Correct. Critically endangered. The gray wolf.
Not endangered.
Correct. It used to be, but there's been a lot of work.
There has been.
And so they're not anymore. And finally, the peregrine falcon.
Not endangered.
Correct. Not endangered. And that was Endangered or Not. This has been Trail Mix by Gaze at the National Parks, the podcast. We're here to remind you to hike early and hike often, and that adventure is always out there.
Gaze at the National Parks was created and is hosted by us,
Dustin Ballard
and Michael Ryan.
To see images from this episode, follow our Instagram at Gaze at the National Parks. To contact us, email us at gazeatthenationalparks@gmail.com. And to find out more about the parks visited on this show, visit our website, gazeatthenationalparks.com. That's Gaze, G-A-Z-E.
All original artwork featured on Instagram, on our website, and in the Gaze Shop is by me, Michael Ryan.
All original music was written by Dave Seaman and performed by Dave Seaman, Mariella Klinger, and Sean Sklios. Our music producer is Skyler Fortgang. This episode was edited by me, Dustin Ballard.
We would also like to acknowledge that while recording this episode, that we are on the traditional and stolen lands of the Lenape people, also known as Middlesex County, New Jersey.